Hey guys, today I want to talk about living the expat life at a 50% discount. Most places in the world that people travel to, a lot of them can be kind of expensive. There are cheap places out there. Some of the places are starting to come up a little bit in price because of the COVID and just world inflation that's going on. The Philippines still kind of lags behind the rest of the world as far as that goes. It kind of offers you things here on the cheap. Okay, I find that chicken here and some meats here are a little bit cheaper than back in the States and back in other Western countries. But here's the thing I want to talk about. I want to do a comparison, okay? I used to go to Belize all the time, which is in Central America. It's considered a Caribbean country. And there was a lot of islands I used to go out to. And one of them was Key Cocker. And I used to go out to Key Cocker, stay out there, and it was expensive, okay? For you to rent a home out there, it was very, very expensive because the people would drive up the prices. Even if there was nobody on the island, they would still keep the prices high because they knew that you were from outside the country and they knew that you were an expat, so they just kept it artificially inflated. I mean, you could make deals when it was pretty much dead out there, like during COVID and stuff like that, I'm sure. But now it's kind of coming back up. It's going back to where it was before. From people that I've talked to that live out there, things have kind of gone back to normal a little bit, but it's not 100% where it was before. But we're going to see like all these places after all this COVID stuff lifts, and it's still lifting a little bit as we talk here. But I mean, here we're open up to tourists, but we still kind of have a little bit of it going on. And I think we're going to have a little bit of that going on probably for another 6 months or a year or what have you. But here's the thing. Over here in the Philippines, there's many different levels for expats to look at. And you can live really, really cheap, and you could probably save 75% from some of these other countries or from living in the US by coming over here and just living here. You could live, I wouldn't say go less than $1,000 because you need to have some sort of insurance. And if you're in your 70s, no, you're not going to live on $1,000. I'm going to be upfront and tell you right out there, it's going to cost you a lot more. Okay? But if you're in your 50s and 60s, you can live very reasonable over here because of the fact that the rents are cheap. Now, I was talking to an expat today. His name is Tim. Tim was here today. We were talking, and I was talking to him a little bit about Florida Sun. Now, Florida Sun is a place that, let me tell you, it has a lot to offer because it gives you that expat feel where you have a pool there. You're close to everything outside. You can order food out. There's a Greenwich pizza. There's Western foods nearby. There's vegetables. He happened to be a vegetarian. There's a vegetable stands right outside his gate. He can go over and get fish if he wants, and it's still flipping on the table sometimes when you walk into the market. Okay, and it's cheap. Okay, now to these guys, when they see like a little bit of a bump in the price, I look at it as, well, gee, that's still a good deal compared to the United States. Okay, now here if they see that little bump, they complain about it, but it's still way cheaper than the US. Just like chicken over here. Chicken, for a whole chicken, it's like $2.25, $2.50 for a whole chicken over here for a halfway decent sized chicken. That's a good deal. I think it's a really, really good deal. You can get fresh chickens over here. Some places it's a little bit more expensive. It depends where you are too. Obviously, if you're up in Manila, you're probably going to pay a little bit more. But as you get out into places like Tracy Martires, places like that, it drops in price. So it's where you are. Like a lot of guys that go to Gig, BGC, those are the high-end places. You're going to pay top dollar for an apartment up there, and you're going to get a small apartment. Yeah, you're going to be in the middle of all these nice buildings, and you might be in a high-rise where you get a beautiful view at night, but you're going to pay for that. Okay, you're going to pay for it. And yeah, you have nice malls, but you're going to be paying Western prices. It's not going to be cheap to live up there. It's not cheap at all. So you can kind of pick and choose where you want to go in the Philippines, and that's a great thing because you're in the same country no matter what. So let's say you come over here, and you're living off of, you're 55, you were able to get, like me, a municipal pension or whatever, because some people can, through municipalities, you can retire at 55. So let's just say your pension allows you to retire at 55, and you take that, you're living on $1,250. That's what I actually ended up coming over here with originally, and then I had some other things pop into place later on with other pensions and stuff. So here's what happened: is I come over here, and now later on I'll get Social Security later on. Okay, I can take that at 67. I can take it at 62. I really don't need it. So why would I want to take it at 62? But if I want to have that extra spending money, that extra cash, I can do that at 62 if I so decide to. But now I'm over here and I'm living cheap. I'm living in this house here that I live in. You guys might have seen some of the videos that I've done on my house here. I can live for $80. I mean, I've showed those other apartments for 100 now. So inflation's catching up, and some of these smaller apartments now, they're going for 100. And some of the older apartments, my apartment was brand new when we moved in here. Okay, now these ones here are probably going to stay at 80, or maybe they'll go to 90. Some of the ones next to me, they're a little bit smaller. Those ones go for 60. Okay, but they stay at that price because they're kind of beat up. They need painting, and some Filipinos, they don't understand, if you fix the place up and you sand down the door and you make it look like new again, you can get the same price for it from an expat or even a Filipino for that matter. It's just a little bit of elbow grease to put into it. But what I'm saying is when we come over here, we get this extremely low rents. So when I say 50% off, I mean, as far as rents go, you're getting like 90% off. In a lot of cases, and not in everything, okay, when I say that. I'm saying for the small apartments, you're getting like 90% off. Because for a small apartment in the United States, the lowest you're really going to find them for, like in the Boston area or maybe in California, is $1,000. For a one bedroom, it's really tiny, you're going to pay at least $1,000, at least. You're not going to find much cheaper than that unless it's in a rundown area or whatever. You might find a little cheaper, but you wouldn't want to live there. So you're getting 90% off, we'll say. Now, when you get up to like a 2-bedroom home, okay, 2-bedroom home, you're going to start paying a little bit more for. You're probably going to pay anywhere from, for a nice one I'm talking about. Now, I'm talking nice, okay, like a little bungalow or something like that in a gated community. You're going to pay about $260, $300, somewhere in that range, $340, somewhere in that range for a 2-bedroom bungalow, okay? You probably have to put the box type ACs in there or whatever. Sometimes, usually it would be brand new. That'd be like in Florida Sun. But there's a lot of other places out there. It's not. I'm not just talking about this area, but I'm using this area as an example. Okay, there's other areas where it's going to be a little bit more. If you're going to live in a place where there's a lot more stores around, where it's more Western, where it's more, if that's what you're looking for. And some people aren't looking for the Western. I fully get that. Okay, they want to get away from the Western world. They want to be on the beach or whatever. For beaches, you're going to probably pay a little bit more if you're going to be in an area that has some shopping around, or it might have some decent malls around or something like that. You're going to pay a little bit more for that. Okay, because there's places that are beautiful places, but there's nothing around you. You can't go out and get a hot dog or go to the pizza place or something like that because they're not nearby. So, those places, the rents are going to be a lot lower. It's going to be a little bit higher if you got but that's not also not always necessarily true that it's going to be higher just because all those amenities are nearby also. It depends on the place, because each place is different and it has its own personalities, and some of them are like cheaper than others, but they're still really nice. I mean, if you want to come here and you want to live the upper end high class lifestyle over here, you could still do it on the cheap. You could move to Alabang, okay, and you could live there for fairly reasonable in a 1-bedroom place. You got all the malls around, you got all the doctors around, you got famous people living around you. You're living more like in a Western country, but you're living in the Philippines, and you're living a lot cheaper than you would back in the U.S. It's kind of like living in Florida there. It's got everything that you need nearby. You can live up in Manila, and there's different sections of Manila. There's some places that are cheaper than others. I mean, you can live in Tondo, and you can, it's not really a great place to live. It's okay to live there. It's not a place that I would choose to live, but it's okay. But they say it's not safe there at night all the time. You can live near Mall of Asia. There's places near there that are decent, and they're clean. It's a nice area. The streets seem to be swept and clean, and it's nicely manicured there. You pay a little bit more there. You can go to BGC, to Gig, near the Venice Mall, those areas, and you'll have nice malls, and yeah, that's more high end. You're going more high end, and then there's even really super high-end places that you can get into too, and even those are kind of very reasonable, to be honest with you. The housing here, from what we see back in the U.S., is way different. I mean, yes, they're cement, they're built differently, but the housing is just as nice and just as beautiful. And the cement here, it's nice. I don't mind cement in my home being a cement home. I really, really don't. I have my AC running. It keeps me cool. It keeps me nice. But like I said, everything here is more reasonable. When I go to the doctors, my medical care, I pay sometimes $6 or $8 to see a doctor. At De La Salle University Hospital, I paid to see a dermatologist. I saw her for 2 to 3 hours one day. She charged me 750 pesos, which amounts to about $15. Okay, now see. No, I take that back. It was about 750 pesos. It was about $15. It's $15 for 3 hours seeing that doctor. I was there from 11 to almost 2 o'clock. So it was like about 2.5 hours, but it was almost 3 hours total. And she charged me $15. For a dermatologist, that's a specialist. Okay? So these are the things that we see here that you can take care of yourself. You can go to the doctors more often. You want to go to the dentist more often to keep your teeth clean, to get scaling done, or have cavities filled, or cleanings, or whatever you need. You can get dental implants, all that stuff, bonding. It's way cheaper. It's much cheaper than a 50% discount in most cases. For you to get dentures here, it's anywhere from $100 to $300 probably in most cases, depending on which doctor you see here and everything, to get dentures done here. Bargain prices, bargain basement. My dentist, when I go to see my dentist, I mean, it's very cheap for cleaning, and I go to a top-notch dentist in De La Salle University Hospital. I'm very comfortable with him, and I like seeing him. He's a good doctor. His wife is also a good dentist, doctor, whatever you want to call him. Both him and his wife run the place, and they run it really, really well. And you can't get better prices than that, And when I checked in one time for kidney stones at De La Salle University Hospital, the price that they charged me was very cheap. I can't remember exactly what it was, but if I had gone to a regular hospital, they would have soaked me for probably $1,000, $1,500 or whatever, and that would have been in the States just to use the emergency room. I mean, they gave me a bed there. They checked me out. They did X-rays and a bunch of other stuff, and I would say that they probably did it in the United States. It would have been $1,500. They charged me, I think in the end it was about $250 because my insurance picked up some of the costs, but they didn't pick up all the costs. Okay, because I had Pacific Cross, and because part of it was outpatient, but they did pick up the emergency room visit, but they didn't pick up the other stuff because I wasn't admitted. So I was like, well, that's good and bad. So when you go to the hospital, if you do use Pacific Cross, you do want to make sure you have outpatient and inpatient, and you want to make sure that if you're in the emergency room, tell them to admit you, because you want to be admitted, because then the insurance picks it up. So that's a little tip there. But to get back to cost here, when I compare to the Philippines to other countries, like as in Belize, Mexico, and places like that, Mexico's cheap, okay, but I always think that the Philippines is just a bit cheaper. It's a bit different here. Granted, the Philippines is a bit wonky sometimes. Because you can go from place to place to place, and each place is a little bit different in prices and stuff as far as housing. Now, when you get here, you need to really figure out what place is going to fit your niche, what place fits your lifestyle, and you got to figure that out and look at it and say, this place here, I like swimming in the ocean, or I like to have a pool. If you're gonna have a pool, then you want the gated communities. If you want to be near the ocean, then you want to try to find a place. Do you want to have a big home because you have the money for it, or do you want to get a smaller home? Because you can get places right on the ocean here fairly cheap and reasonable, and not really that costly. and you could live the life there. But there's things that you give up when you go to these outer islands and stuff like that you have to consider, that you're not going to be near, Walter Mart or a mall or anything like that. So anytime you need to go get something like that, you got to leave your area, pay to leave your area, travel really far, and then come back. Is there a place on that island that you can go to? Is there a city on that island that you can go to where you can get away for a while and go to check out these other, places to buy things, to buy appliances and things like that? The other thing is power outages here. You need to consider that too, and take that into the, that those places that have lots of power outages, the rents aren't going to be that high because nobody really wants to live there. Those are the places that you try to stay away from. My place rarely has a power outage. I live right next to the mayor. Maybe that has something to do with it. We do have internet outages here on occasion down the other end of the street where Expat Kenny lives. He gets outages almost every other day for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. And then at my house, we get I won't say outages, but I'll say they're slowdowns to where the internet kind of slows down and bogs down for it. So these are some of the things you give up when you leave your Western country and you come to the Philippines. But yes, you're getting a 50% discount on living, okay? Cars here tend to be cheaper, but the engines are small. They make different types of cars, but the same models. I mean, you can get an MG SUV here for like 18 to 20,000, dollars. Okay, where are you going to find a price like that? It's very, very difficult for you to find a beautiful, decent car like that. But yes, the motor's a little bit tinier here, and you don't really need that high power to travel around because the highways around here are almost non-existent. We have highways here, but most of the time you're not traveling at 65 miles an hour. You're doing about 50 to 60 miles an hour in that range somewhere. You never go any faster than that. And usually you're not on the highway that much. Usually you're on the back roads and you're stuck in traffic or something like that. If you are on the back roads and you're traveling, usually you're not doing more than 50 or 60 miles an hour. You're just not over here. It's just not the way it is. But like for travel over here, it's cheap. If you use buses, it's cheaper. Domestic travel in the Philippines is very reasonable. I find a lot of things here very, very reasonable in comparison with the US, UK, Australia, or most of Europe. Most of Europe, not all of Europe. Some places in Europe are very cheap still. Portugal, Spain, very cheap. I heard Greece is starting to get up there in price a little bit, and Spain might be moving up a little bit too. I'm not sure about Portugal, but those places used to be expat places where they were considered cheap, and I'm hearing that even those places have come up a little bit. Now the Philippines is coming up in price. Don't get me wrong, it's coming up in price. But you know what? If you come over here, for you to be able to get into a gated community here in a bungalow for $300, and that's not furnished, but I mean for $300, that's a bargain for a brand spanking new bungalow you can get in there in some of these gated communities. If you catch them right, even if you get a used one, you got to slap some paint on there or something, no big deal. I mean, we saw Expat Darren's house. That's a bargain. It's a true bargain. You can get those homes for about $360. When it's just a basic house. You might have to put in the AC, things like that, and furnish the place. But I mean, if you're going to do some repairs or renovations or anything, you can usually talk to the landlord. They'll come down the price a little bit, because you're doing something that's fixing up the property. These are all things to consider over here. That where are you going to get a home for $300 to $400? In the United States. I mean, if you're older, you're retired, and you're looking for a rental in the United States, or if you own, I mean, that's different. If your property's all paid off, that's great, but you still have to contend with all the Western issues and Western problems. And not to say that there aren't issues over here, but they don't really affect us that much. I mean, COVID's almost over. We're almost done with that. So that's off the board now. We're getting over this. I'm seeing it at the malls. I see people with their masks down at the malls, walking to the malls. Nobody's bothering them. I see a lot of that going on. They're not checking us for our COVID cards anymore in some malls. So I mean, we're doing pretty good over here. I mean, I know back in the U.S. that's all that stuff is passé now, but they still have other issues going on now to contend with because of the 2 years of shutdowns and kids not going to school and stuff. I'm hearing that there's a lot more fights in school and things like that. So they definitely have their issues there, and we have our issues here too, because the kids aren't back to school yet over here. And if you're bringing a kid, or you're going to be with a girl that has kids, remember those kids are probably going to be with us for probably at least another 6 months here, because of COVID and the kids not going back to school yet. I think that might even go out another year. I'm hoping that soon the kids go back to school, and God willing they will be. But anyway, I just, also the other thing is electricity charges. Some people say that electricity charges are really expensive over here. I mean, I'm running my air conditioner 24/7 over here. I got a big screen TV. I got my computer going. I pay about $90. $90. Okay, I got 2 refrigerators. $90 is not that much. I remember back home I was paying more than that in Massachusetts, and I had probably about the same amount of electricity going on in my house at that time. That's expensive, back home. When because I think I was paying that or more. So the electricity bills here is not that much. The water bills is like $8 to $12 a month or something. The only real high costs over here are like internet, depending on what you get. And the internet over here, some areas suck. I'll be honest with you about that, and I want to talk a little bit about that too. Is over here, you can get cheap internet for one person, as long as one person in the house is using it, for like probably about $30. Okay. You can also get, if you're near a cell tower, you can get pocket Wi-Fi, and that works fine. It works fine. You can watch TV, you can watch YouTube, and upload and download fairly fast and everything, and you're going to be okay with that. But if you get if you're hardwired in your house and you got the Wi-Fi in there and all that, $20, if $70 if you want to get really speedy internet, anywhere from 300 Mbps to 700 Mbps, depending on the company you go through and any deals they have going on at the time. But like I said, it's spotty. It keeps going up and down. Internet is going to be one of the things that you're going to pay for, and you're going to pay through the nose for a little bit. And you can also get cable TV and all those additional things. But anyway, guys, I want to talk a little bit about that to compare. I just want you guys to know that you can live 50% off your expat life here. Most people on average can live here between $1,000 to $2,000 and be okay, even with a girlfriend, even with a family, even with your insurance. But the $2,000 to $3,000 sweet spot that I do talk about, the key to living on that, the key to the sweet spot is you get to live the way you want. You got high-end insurance. You get a more high-end lifestyle. You probably have a car. You could cruise around more. If you don't have a car, you can hire a driver, what have you, on that $2,000 to $3,000 sweet spot budget over here. That's $2,000 to $3,000 US. That's a great deal, great deal. But anyway, guys, God bless. Take care. I hope that helps you guys a little bit to understand the way things work around here. I just want you to know that housing over here is what's going to save you the biggest amount. And that's what I wanted to try to get through to you guys, is that's where you're going to save your 50% in most cases. And even if you move to BGC, or even if you move to Alabang, even if you move to Makati or any of these other places where apartments are a little bit more, they're still cheaper than in the U.S. living in Houston or living in some higher class city or something like that. It's still going to be cheaper here than in those places. So when you come over here, you might be upgrading. Some people downgrade because they want to cut back on expenses and they want to live more. They want to travel more. That's me. Okay, you might want to just be a person that stays home, have a pool, be able to go sit out by the pool, go on the internet, bring your iPad with you by the pool and sit and go on the internet and see the news every day or what have you. Sit with your girlfriend, maybe bring a couple beers with you and sit by the pool or whatever. That might be your lifestyle, and that's okay. But some people want to get out and go to the beaches or travel around, and that's where living a little bit cheaper in a cheaper place or whatever might pay off, so you can go on a trip once a month or something, or you can go to the resort near you once a month or every other month or whatever. That's the great part about being able to upscale or downscale your home. And also, as inflation eats away at you, the good thing is if you come over here and you're living in an upscale home, you can always downscale to a lower price home and probably not give up that much. But anyway, guys, God bless. Take care. I hope you enjoyed today's show.